This video is a video autofocus test for the Lumix S9 using the MC-21 adapter that takes EF lenses and converts them to L mount with electronic contacts. I am at ISO 4000, which is one of the native ISOs, I believe, on the S9. I honestly believe that this autofocus is perfect. Almost. The only instance in which the autofocus tends to not be in my favor is in a situation like this, right? It always goes, for the most part, it's not doing it right. Oh, there you go. See, it'll go to my hand or any object that's closer to the camera. But you see the head and eye and stuff still tracking on my face. This right now, as you see, this is the 24mm f1.4 at 1.4 Sigma art lens. And now if I were to go ahead and change that to an f2, that's what an f2 is looking like. Now, what happens if we bring in competing faces? The question is it in focus? Whose face takes priority? Is the person whose face is in the front, they take priority over the one. No, it's the baby face. The baby face takes priority, or is it giving priority to lighter skin over darker skin? So, light skin, dark skin. Nope, light skin still on in focus. So, what am I missing here? Why is the if I hide the light skin here and I bring the light skin over back there? Okay. No, okay. So now back it's on my phone. So I don't know how that works with relation to having multiple faces in not so much close proximity. So the face that's, I guess, closest, generally speaking, is going to take priority, but it's still focusing on. Who's it focusing on? Focusing on him. Okay. So that's interesting. So we're at f2. Now, one of the things I do like when I'm in full frame mode is keeping it at f2.0, generally, because that's more than enough background blur. I'll put this guy back down, let him play. I am shooting this in Vlog with the Rec 709 LUT applied. And this actually makes my life a lot easier because the camera's already doing all the work. When I bring it into the OBS studio, I don't have to apply the LUT in there. That's how I do it right now with my Sony cameras. This lens here is a Sigma 18-35. So let's go ahead and mount this bad boy. So this here is a Sigma 18-35 f1.8 art zoom lens. One thing to notice is that with the MC-21 adapter, automatically put you into APS-C mode. You don't get the option to jump into a full frame mode, because one of the things I do like about the 18-35, from the focal range of about 28-35, you do have nearly full frame coverage, and which comes in handy because now you're getting a full frame field of view for 28-35 at f1.8, whereas in APS-C mode, if you want, this is basically 28mm field of view at 18mm. Now, so this is 35mm on the Sigma 18-35. Now, one thing that I have noticed is that at 35mm, when I attach it to my Sony ZV-E10, it gets really, really wonky with relation to the autofocus starts hunting. And that's with an MC-11 adapter, whereas I don't see that happening here. I think the only difference is if I put my hand, okay, there we go. Now it took my hand in focus. Now at the same time, if I were to compete faces, here's a little guy, boom, he in focus versus me. Now if I come back here as such, and then I bring him back forward, he's the one that becomes in focus. He's teething right now, so he's got a lot of drool coming. He's looking at himself. Yes, look at yourself, you little baby. All right, anyway, so this is 35mm zooming in, 35mm zooming out. Not zooming out, but stepping out. Now, if I bring that back out, this is 18mm. or to fix and I wanted to kind of showcase what I'm working on, and I'm doing a little tutorial and things like that. This is basically the field of view. This is the autofocus. How's it going? How's it looking? I really like the look that comes out of this camera in terms of the colors and skin tones and saturation, especially with the vlog. Oh yeah, yeah, I know. It's so nice. It's a very nice camera. And your baby looks so cute and adorable. But yeah, the autofocus is on point. The other Sigma art lens that I have is also APS-C. It's the 30mm f1.4. Now the challenge with also, again, the 30mm f1.4 is that because it's APS-C, MC-21 tells Lumix S9, go and stay in APS-C mode. Now, if anybody knows a way to get out of that, let me know. Otherwise, you can get into full frame mode for the purposes of taking advantage of E-stabilization on an APS-C lens, and I'm going to show that in the next example. Bam! All right, so we've got a full wide angle view here. So this here is the Tokina 14mm or 14 to 20mm f2 lens. Am I zoomed out? So this is the lens fully zoomed out, and as you can see, it's an APS-C lens. There's going to be some heavy vignetting throughout the entire field of view. Now, the reason I like using this, careful kiddo, you don't want to hit the tripod. You don't want to grab the tripod. You're trying to grab the tripod. All right, so this is autofocus. It's working. It's working really, really well. And now he wants to grab the camera. You can't grab the camera. You can't grab the camera. All right, so this is autofocus. It is working really well. Now, one of the things I do like is when I go into E-stabilization and I activate it to high, I get, what's it called? It crops in 1.4x. And so all of the vignetting goes away. As long as I'm not using the camera like a monkey, then the vignetting won't really show around. But if I'm like holding it on one of the top handles and I'm, using it like a toddler, then obviously some of the vignetting is going to show up as part of the E-stabilization. But if you're using it like a normal person, or you're trying to make sure that you're holding it to some level of proficiency, then that's not going to be much of a problem. Now, this is at 20mm. One of the things I do like about this is that at 20mm, this gives me almost full frame coverage. All I have to do is just punch in a little bit or turn on some of that E-stabilization, and all that vignetting is gone. And then here you go. Look, autofocus. It is working and it is nearly silent. Now, if you put a microphone on top of the camera, it'll pick it up. But even right now from here, yeah, I know, it's so cute. It's so cute. I know, it's so cute. Autofocus is working. Autofocus is working just as good as my Canon EOS M6 Mark II. Yes, it is. I know. It's so adorable. He's so happy. You've been, it's almost your feeding time, but not yet. We're waiting. Yes. And then it'll be Baba's feeding time, and Baba's going to eat some shrimp and rice, and Baba's going to be so happy, and you're going to be so happy, and then we're going to have some fun. So anyway, this is the 20mm f2 or 14 to 20 Tokina f2 at 20mm. I can put this in APS-C mode, but I want to just not waste your time because it works just as good as this. Let's move on to the next one. Boom. Boom. Now this here is the Tokina 11 to 16 f2.8 crop sensor lens. This is at 11mm, super ultra extra wide, and 11mm on a full frame. As you can see, there's gonna be a lot of you'll see everything. You'll see even the floor. You'll even see probably even see my feet if I step back far enough. Yep. So this is my home office studio that I share with my wife whenever she's working from home. Today she is not, so that's why I have daddy duty. But if we bring this bad boy, little boy over here, yeah, focus. It's working. Focus works. He's having fun. The focus is working. One of the things that makes autofocus great is it makes for a great dad cam tool. And so, who's it focusing in on more? Well, it's hard to tell. It's an ultra wide angle. Now, the cool thing about the Tokina 11 to 16, as well as the Tokina 11 to 20 millimeter crop sensor lens, is that if you get to 16 millimeters, bam, you get full frame coverage. So if you want to make your home office look super large, this would be the lens to do. And at 60 to 20 millimeters, the Tokina works just as well with relation to full frame coverage. So if you wanted a ultra wide angle 16 to 20 millimeter full frame zoom lens, this would be the one to go. And so he's in focus. Now the cool thing about this lens also, because it's a crop sensor lens, go to the menu, image stabilization. I go to standard, crops in just a little bit. And if I wanted to punch out, you'll still see there's a bunch of vignetting. Now, if I were to now change that, cut that recording, and now, come on. There you go. Now I go to image stabilization from standard. I change it to high. And this is the field of view that I get. And this field of view is about the same field of view as the, what's it called? 24 millimeter lens. This is actually kind of cool in terms of the look that I'm getting. Just need to place that right there. Now you'll notice as I move, there's a delay in the movement. And that's part of the E-stabilization doing its thing. And so this is now at 11 millimeters at E-stabilization set to high. And it's one of those things where I think it actually looks really good. One thing I'm realizing is that my monitor is not straight. There you go. Now it's straight. You get those really good leading lines. Actually, I really like this look. I might consider this for future video and tutorial recordings. This is pretty cool. Autofocus is continuing to do its job. This is at 11 millimeters. Now, if I zoom in, no, I'm sorry. That was 16 millimeters. Now I'm at 11 millimeters. This is even cooler. Hello. Yeah, you're swimming in the air. Autofocus. 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 Now the Tokina 11 to 16 is actually really loud with relation to its mechanism on autofocusing. So that's just something to be cognizant of. But this is one of the reasons I like this particular lens on the S9 adapted, because I don't know of any other lens that has maybe the 14 to 28 from Lumix straight up, but it's far more affordable to get the Tokina 11 to 16 or the 11 to 20 for just about $200 or $300 with the adapter, which probably costs you another $150 to $200 max. I think you're still saving some money with relation to buying a native lens. And for this regular office, home office, dad office, non-professional, perhaps even content creation on semi-professional level, this would be doing the job. This is an old lens that a lot of people have been using it professionally. So, but if you don't have this lens and you're considering getting a budget option, maybe again 11 to 20 would probably be more appropriate. I would still gravitate towards maybe the 14 to 20 and just simply use that at 20 millimeters or 14 millimeters in APS-C mode. So just wanted to kind of share that with relation to what this lens is good for. Now let's move on to my next lens. Again, it's going to be a crop sensor lens. This is the Canon EF-S classic 17 to 55 millimeter f2.8. Let's see what this looks like. All right, so here is the field of view with the 17 to 55 millimeter f2.8 IS lens on the S9 through the MC-21. Now, I still have E-stabilization on and it is set to high. And the reason is because this camera is no good with relation to full frame field of view. So watch this. Now, if I turn off the IS in lens, then any and all E-stabilization and IBIS is also turned off. And this is the field of view that I get with relation to this camera. Now, if I turn it back on, I get the crops into 1.4x, and I get the full frame, well now the full coverage that this lens would have me do. Again, I move back and then I move forward, and one of the things that you'll notice is the focus breathing in this lens is actually quite noticeable, especially when you have a lot of edge things, like you have the edge over here as well as the lighting, the flare that's coming in. It's a little bit noticeable. Now, let's see if this little kiddo, he bring me back. I put a bit on him because he was drooling a lot. But am I in focus?
Yes, I am in focus.
And then out of focus, in focus, out of focus, in focus. Yes, and that's a 17 mil. Now, if we bump this up to 55, and hey, baby, Baba, baby, hey, Baba, baby, hey. Now let's pull out a little bit. This is probably closer to like 28 to 35, somewhere in between. And so autofocus, it's working good. It is relatively quiet too, because sometimes some lenses on their native, like some Canon lenses, if you mount them natively, they're quiet, but then they become really loud when you adapt them. I don't know what the reason for that is, but this kid is enjoying. Let me stand up. Put your feet on the table. Wait, careful now. Get traction. Hey, who's more in focus? Is Baba more in focus or is baby more in focus? Okay, let's see. Let's get Baba on the screen. And like I see a box around both heads. There's a yellow box around my kid and there's a white box around my head. And but either way, this is f2.8. The next lens is going to be this Tokina 28 to 70 millimeter f 2.8 lens, classic lens that has been used by a lot of filmmakers. As you can see, I've modified mine a little bit with a couple of gear rings. Let's go ahead and get that mounted. So this here is the good old Tokina 28 to 70 millimeter f 2.8. This lens is actually a bit brighter than what is seemingly advertised. So I think this looks more appropriate. One of the interesting things is that you'll notice that certain lenses, they may say 2.8, but the actual transmission of light is different. So something like this is a 2.8, but the transmission of light at 28 millimeters is seemingly a little bit more, as I can see. I had to turn up the shutter speed to get my exposure more on point. One of the things is for this situation, for a camera like this, it has a native ISO of 640 and 4000. So right now I'm at 4000, which is great for indoor type of shooting, and this is the image that I get out of it. So this is my autofocusing, up close, far away. It's a slower lens for sure because it's an older lens, but the autofocus is working. Hey, hello, how are you today? And focus follows. Hey, look at that. Oh yeah, one thing is that the minimum focus on this lens is actually about 2 feet. So if I get any further, it's not going to be able to focus unless I get a diopter. So this is one of the other things is that, there you go. It's moving. It's following. Hello. So watch this. I've disabled the autofocus and I zoom in. Manual focus. This lens is nearly parfocal. So you zoom in, you zoom out. Whatever you zoomed in on is going to remain in focus. One of the reasons why I like this lens a lot. So if I were to re-enable autofocus though, it will continue to make your life easy. So if I move back a little bit and then I move forward, continues to follow me. Back, continues to follow me. Move forward, continues to follow me. And when it comes to my collection of office lenses, this is my second to last one. I have one more to showcase, and that is this guy right here. This is the Tamron 2105 f 2.8. If you didn't know this lens existed, it does, so check this out. Boom. Here we go. This is the Tamron 28 to 105. I am at f2.8. Good looking edge. If you ever wondered whether a particular lens is sharp enough, well, take a look at this. This lens is known to not be very sharp at f2.8, and just kind of give you the effect of the change that happens. If I wanted the lens to be like significantly sharper, I would bring it down to like a 3.5. And this is probably the lens where it's like you won't be able to tell between a, I guess, seemingly not so sharp lens and a sharp lens. So this is the Tamron 28 to 105, 2.8 at 3.5. And this is what it looks like. Little baby wants some attention. Here you go.
attention.
Here you go. Hey, look at me. I'm a baby and I want some attention. And you want my stuff. Oh, you want your milk? You want your milk? Okay, Baba, get your milk. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. Whoa. 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 Yeah, you want this? You want this? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, there you go. Blah, 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 blah. There you go. This is at 28 millimeters. Let me just go ahead and rotate this a little bit. And let's pump it up to a little bit tighter. Now, I don't know what field of view this is. My guess is it's probably like 40 or 50 millimeter, and this is what that looks like. I haven't zoomed out all the way. The good thing about this lens is that you can zoom to your desired composition, and so this is a great lens. This lens works really well with full frame cameras. You put this on a crop sensitive camera, and then any and all of the, I guess, imperfections tend to be a little bit more noticeable. But let's see, if I bring this back down to a 2.8, you'll notice there's more like flariness. The contrast of the lens itself went down just a little bit, but let's say I were to bump up that shutter speed to maybe 1/50. Well, look at the style of the blur. I know this is an autofocus test, but I just want to kind of showcase. Look at the style of the blur at 2.8, even on just over here, like the bokeh balls, and then I go down to say a 3.5, and they're a little bit clearer. They're more round, they're more bowl-like, as opposed to like raindrop. And if we now pump this further to a full 105 millimeters. f3.5, 2.8 lens, f3.5, autofocus, still continuing to work. Drink, baby. Am I too close for focus? There you go. Autofocus works. This is good. Like, the only instance in which I would prefer, say, Sony autofocus is in the situation of like, if I'm going to be doing a talking head video or talking head recording for say 3-4 hours at a time, then instead of the thing I like about the Sony autofocus is that it's got the eye tracking on it, and that eye tracking just sticks. And so especially on the FX3 and the ZV-E1, that eye tracking just like doesn't matter what's in front of the person, doesn't matter who, like if any object comes in front, they put their hands forward, the focus stays on the eye. Whereas here, there you go. So if I move my hand, that's interesting. All right. See, when I'm talking about it, it doesn't, it's not demonstrating. But through the course of this video, I'm sure you may have noticed how the focus will typically jump to that which is in front. But anyway, let's move on to the next lens. Canon 40mm f2.8. You know what it is? I think it's the minimum focus. Yeah, I think this lens has a yeah, there you go. It's the minimum focus. This lens doesn't have, like if I get too close, that's weird. Anyway, moving on. Boom. If you ever wanted to know what a lens looks like when it comes to breathing, a home office showcase is probably the best example of that. The 40 millimeter here actually breathes, is one of those that noticeably breathes. So you got to make sure that your framing is where you want it to be. Oh my goodness. Wait. This is why it's difficult to work when you've got daddy daycare time. Autofocus is working fine. This particular lens is what I thought I would be running with most of the time because it makes the camera profile as small as possible. However, it's not that small because the MC-21 adapter is actually pretty large. And with that size, it's not nearly as small as my Canon, right? So it's almost, hey, it's interesting. When I wanted to focus on an object, there you go. I got to block the faces. So yeah, it sticks out twice as much as this. So in fact, if I were to showcase an example, so this here is what the 40 millimeter f2.8 looks like. It actually comes out quite a bit. It's like the lens itself is a pancake, but it doesn't give me a proper pancaking setup. That's what I thought, but what I ended up doing, I think vast majority of the time, the lens that I was sporting on this was this, the Tokina 14 to 20 millimeter. He's like, ooh, you want the lens? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, can't eat it, no. It was a 40-20 millimeter f2, a full frame mode with E-stabilization set to high, which gave me a field of view of about 28 to 30 millimeters, which is my ideal focal length, which is something similar to this on the 22 f2 with the Canon EOS M. This guy here gives me about a field of view of about 35 millimeter. So Lumix, if you could come out with a 28 or a 35 millimeter pancake lens that is an f2.8, I think you got a banger on your hands. That 28 or 26 millimeter f8 lens that they had, it's not even an autofocus. It would have been considered worth considering maybe if it had some level of autofocus, because even at f8 there are things in the forward and the distance that you may want to, especially when it comes to a close focusing situation, such as, you know, when I come up close. Now this lens actually got a very close minimum focus distance. That's how close I can get with this lens. Probably one of the reasons why I've enjoyed this lens for a long time. This is actually a good dad cam lens. So yeah, that's right. But yeah, this is it. As you can see, the trend here with almost every one of these lenses is that the autofocus works just fine, as if this is not a Lumix or Panasonic camera, but it is actually a Canon camera. And so for that reason, I'm actually appreciating this quite a bit. If you were to ask me how's the autofocus on this camera, I would say it is absolutely reliable. I would have no worries about this. In fact, in many cases, I found the autofocusing on the Lumix S9 with Canon lenses to be more reliable than my Canon EOS M6 Mark II. That's it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I got to get back to daddy duty. I'll see you soon.